I started in the vinyl record industry around 2009. I was working at a place called the Beachland Ballroom in Cleveland, Ohio. It's a live music venue. And I was running sound there, and I was a bar manager. And I was looking to make a change after having spent a decade there. And one day, a postcard was taped to the wall going down to the basement advertising a record pressing plant that was opening in Cleveland, Ohio. And that turned out to be Gotta Groove Records. And I sent my resume to a guy named Vince Lazars. He's one of the founders of Gotta Groove. He took me out to a place called Suma Recording, which is in the Cleveland area, and they had a machine called a mastering lathe. And I spent the day watching this machine in action, and I went home and told my wife about it, and she told me to investigate it further, that maybe there was some kind of opportunity there. And after about a year of digging around online and going down many wormholes, I found a gentleman named Al Grundy in New Jersey, and he became my mentor, and he sold me my first lathe, and I brought that back in about April of 2010 to the Cleveland area and set it up in my mother-in-law's garage, and I cut my first masters in 2010. It was a local Cleveland band called the New Lou Reeds was the first album that I cut, and since then we've cut over 10,000 albums. Well-Made Music has grown a lot since its inception. My first masters were literally cut in a small room in the garage of my mother-in-law. When I brought the lathe back around April of 2010, I set it up in that space, and in 3 months I taught myself how to cut a lacquer for vinyl reproduction. In about June of 2010, I sent out my first masters, and many sleepless nights waiting for those to come back and get test pressings, and those passed. It was a local band called the New Lou Reeds from Cleveland, Ohio, and since then it has been a constant stream of work in the vinyl reproduction industry. We have added more pressing plants that we work with. We currently work with almost a half a dozen pressing plants in the United States. We offer digital mastering services that's headed up by Dave Polster, my studio manager and senior mastering engineer. And we have a staff of 4 people now that handle all of the work, and we can do things like digital mastering, we can do mastering for vinyl, we can cut lacquers, we can cut reference acetates, we can do transfer work, we can do restoration work. So the growth of the business has not only followed the growth of the vinyl industry, but it's grown with the people that I've hired and myself as I've learned more about the business. I think the success of Well-Made Music is based on a couple things. Our communication skills are really good. We have a sense of urgency, I think, in the business that other people don't have. You can usually expect a reply from us the same day that you email us a question or an inquiry, or if it stretches out to 24 hours, we feel uncomfortable about that. And I think people really appreciate that level of service and communication. The other things that are our keys to success are our attention to detail. Each person that we've trained to cut records has been thoroughly trained and then goes through a process where we oversee what they do to make sure that the records that are going out are right. And we call it Well-Made Music because we all here enjoy music. We like music. We're music fans. And my senior engineer, Dave, he came up with a phrase that I like: we cut records, not corners. And I think that's really the biggest key to our success. Well, there's been a lot of highlights in the past 13 years here at Well-Made Music. We've worked on Grammy Award-winning projects. We worked with major labels, independent artists, and there's a different level of gratification that comes with each one of those projects. And I think we feel gratification every time a project makes it to the client and they're happy with the work that we've done. But some of the real highlights for me, I'm a big country music fan, so being able to cut a reissue of Marty Robbins' The Gunfighter and Trail Songs album was huge. That just happened last summer. It came out on awesome smoked vinyl, which was what they called it, Gunsmoke vinyl, that was a very cool project to work on. There was another project, a reissue project, a guy named Eugene McDaniels, a record called Headless Heroes of the Apocalypse. That was actually approved by his family. The reissue was, and it went through several incarnations where we cut it. They didn't feel like it matched the original. We cut it again until they were happy with it. And when that came out, I thought that was a real highlight. and I'm a huge Merle Haggard fan, and I got to work on several Merle Haggard records for Kraft Recordings a few years back. So that's some real great highlights there just in the last few years. Well, the vinyl record industry is a rapidly changing industry for sure. When I started in 2010, there was about a dozen pressing plants in the United States. Now there's probably over 50 pressing plants in the United States. A lot of times I say it's kind of like the micro brewing industry where little breweries popped up in every major metropolitan area, and you're starting to see that in the industry. So we've adapted ourselves by bringing in protocols and efficiencies that allow our business to run smoothly while working with a variety of pressing plants. The first pressing plant we started working with was Gotta Groove in 2010, and now we work with Gotta Groove. We work with Soft Wax in Philadelphia. We work with Citizen Vinyl in Asheville, North Carolina, and we see a couple coming online very soon, one in Pittsburgh called Hellbender Records, and another one in Winston-Salem, North Carolina called The Poorhouse. So you kind of have to be on your toes. You have to be a combination of a salesman, a prognosticator, and a damage control person all at the same time to kind of adapt to things like the lacquer quality that comes in. We spend a lot of time listening to just grooves that have no music in it to see if the lacquers themselves are high enough quality to cut on. And it is, if there's one constant in the industry, is that it will change next week, and we will find a way to adapt to that, and we have successfully done that for the last 13 years. Well, that's a really, really good question. As we talked about earlier, it's a rapidly changing industry. So my goal really is to make well-made music a legacy business that I can pass on to the next generation of engineers that work for me. I have a great right-hand man in Dave Polster, my senior mastering engineer and studio manager. I want Well-Made to live into the future, not only as a part of the vinyl record industry, but as the music industry as a whole. So the restoration work that we do, the digital mastering work that we do, all of those are paths that lead the business into the future. And there's a whole world of possibilities out there for us to expand on those ideas. And as the technology changes, we implement some new technology while using all of this old technology for record pressing, which is a 100-year-old process. And it's just something that I thought when I started, I may be in the industry for 5 to 10 years, and I thought that it was something that people might hang on to for a while, and then the vinyl thing would fade away. But right now, there seems to be no indication at all that it's going to slow up. So we are here, and we are prepared for the next 13 years of well-made music.